You're watching Fugitive Red Eye, and welcome to another episode of Red Eye Raw. And today I'm going to be talking about Red vs. Blue, which is a series I've talked about a few different times here on the channel. But today, I'm going to be talking about why I think Red vs. Blue really ended in Season 10. That's not to say that none of the stuff after Season 10 is any good, because some of it's actually pretty good. But Red vs. Blue really ended in Season 10. And I'll get into that. There's actually two main reasons for it. One is plot-wise, and one is real-world-wise. But before we get to that, I'm going to talk a little bit about Red vs. Blue in general and how it's kind of evolved over time, because Red vs. Blue is one of my favorite all-time shows. Like, technically it's a web series, not a television show, but I still count it as one of my all-time favorite TV shows of all time. Ever of all time. There we go. But Red vs. Blue started with a 5-season run called the Blood Gulch Chronicles. If you're unfamiliar with what Blood Gulch is, it's a map that was in Halo 1, later ported over to Halo 2, brought back in Halo Reach, and it's in a couple others. I think it's in, it's in like some of the remastered ones, like Halo 2 Anniversary, and it's been recreated in Forge on several other ones, but point is, Blood Gulch was a staple of, like, Halo 1, particularly for, like, snipers and stuff like that, right? For, like, online play on the PC version. But essentially, Red vs. Blue just started out as these two teams, the red team and the blue team, facing off each other in a seemingly pointless battle in this big box canyon called Blood Gulch, which is a piece of real estate that nobody cared about. It's just one little canyon with no significance whatsoever, and they're just there wasting time. They're also all incompetent and never actually kill each other. The only killing you ever see that happens in Blood Gulch is team killing, ironically. Like, Caboose kills Church at least twice. Because Church comes back as a ghost, and they do lead you to believe that he's a ghost in the Blood Gulch Chronicles. Although in the Recollection, which we'll get to in a minute, they actually expand on it, and it turns out that's not the case. Now, in the Blood Gulch Chronicles, it was not a serious show at all. In fact, it was only ever intended to get 6 episodes, which is crazy to think about with how long the show's gone on now, because if you don't know, Red vs. Blue is the longest-running web series of all time. Sorry, I should be saying ever of all time each time, just to be consistent and constantly make that reference, but whatever. Point is, it is the longest-running web series. And it was only ever intended to get 6 episodes. But because of how popular it was, it got picked up and it just kept on going. Now, the Blood Gulch Chronicles are great. They're classics. They're comedic. They're not very serious. They're not very plot-driven. It's just funny antics, rather. Antics, that's the word. Funny antics set in the Halo gameplay. It's kind of in the Halo universe, but it's also kind of its own thing. Because they do make references to, like, events and people in the Halo universe, but they also make reference to Halo as a game. They also make reference to all sorts of other things that are not in the Halo universe. So the point is, it's kind of in the Halo universe, but kind of not. It's not really canon per se, but it kind of tries to be sometimes. But it's not really. It's very much its own thing with its own established backstory. After the Blood Gulch Chronicles, you got something called Recovery 1, which introduced us to Washington, who's a great character from the later seasons. But the Blood Gulch Chronicles, they're fine, they're fun. But ultimately, they're not my favorite part of the show. They are good. They're really good. They're a classic, and I absolutely love the Blood Gulch Chronicles, because the show would not exist without them. And this is back when it was just pure comedy. So this is the part, like, there are some people I know, friends of mine, who do not like anything after this. And I understand that mentality, but I'm glad the show evolved into what it would later become for the following 5 seasons. Again, like I said, I feel like it ended with Season 10 properly. But, anyway, at the end of Season 5, they did kind of give it an ending, but it wasn't, like, definitive, and then when they came back, it felt kind of natural, especially with Recovery 1 bridging the gap between this and the Recollection. So let's move on to the Recollection. Alright, so here we have Recollection, right? So the Blood Gulch Chronicles, they made up Seasons 1 through 5. The Recollection here, this makes up Seasons 6 through 8. And the Recollection is when things started to change a little bit. And so in the Recollection, it was very action and plot-oriented. Like, it's still a comedy, but it was very much more focused on action and developing a plot and establishing characters and giving them some backstories. That's when we found out that Church was an AI and not a ghost, and that's how he's able to move through multiple bodies and stuff. And you start getting all this stuff, and you get introduced a little bit more to Project Freelancer. Now, Freelancers were mentioned in the Blood Gulch Chronicles. They were an integral part to the Blood Gulch Chronicles, too. But here in the Recollection, they expand it, and you find a little bit more about Project Freelancer and the director of Project Freelancer, who's this mysterious villain-type character. And he's a key part of the first 10 seasons. He is the major antagonist from seasons 1 through 10, if you look at it big picture-wise. Like, there's several mini arcs within the series leading up to it that have their own villains, like O'Malley and stuff like that. But the director of Project Freelancer was set up as the primary antagonist, starting with the Recollection. And the Recollection, Season 8, which was the final part of the Recollection, was the first one to introduce us to CGI instead of just straight machinima. And the CGI fight scenes were really cool in this. They also had a villain in this called the Meta, who's really fucking cool. And that's why I disagree with the whole death battle thing with the Meta, but we'll get to that in a minute when I get to season 14. But yes, this was when the show started to get really good. In fact, when this was coming out, was when I started to watch the show heavily. Because back during the Blood Gulch stuff, before I bought it, of course, because I've seen all of these seasons multiple times at this point. But back during the Blood Gulch stuff, I'd just see bits and pieces here and there, and I'd just get a laugh out of it. But once I started watching the Recollection, I was watching it on Halo Waypoint as new episodes were released on Halo Waypoint, and I'd watch a new episode as it came out. Again, probably came out on roosterteeth.com before that, but I was watching it as it was premiering on Halo Waypoint. And who remembers that? Waypoint was great. Now it's Halo Channel, but back when it was called Halo Waypoint is when I would watch the Recollection, and that's how I got more and more invested into Red vs. Blue, because I really got attached to the characters watching the Recollection. And then after I finished the Recollection, I went back and binged all of the Blood Gulch Chronicles, because again, I'd seen bits and pieces of it, but the Recollection is when I started watching it, like, as much as I do. So that's when I got really attached and watched it all and just fucking binged the shit out of it. But yeah, that's the Recollection. Good stuff. Lots of action, lots of plot, and it started to develop more and more. Alright, now we're on to Seasons 9 and Seasons 10. This is the Project Freelancer seasons. This is specifically what's known as the Project Freelancer arc, and in my opinion, the best part of Red vs. Blue. These two seasons are the best fucking seasons of the entire series. Nothing else even comes close. In this, not only did they keep the action and the plot and the comedy from all the stuff leading up to it, but they developed it, they built on the characters, and they made it fucking dramatic and depressing and, like, really good and well-developed. Like, it's crazy to think that just a crazy, like, you know, just a funny little game, like a funny little web series made about a video game could evolve into one of my favorite drama series of all time. But these two seasons, Seasons 9 and Seasons 10, again, Season 10 is my favorite season overall, because it wraps up all of the Freelancer stuff. It completes the big arc, and we'll get into that more, but obviously that's one of the reasons why it's what I consider the true ending of Red vs. Blue. But these were a lot more heavily focused on the CGI, admittedly, but they did it so well that I didn't care. Here in Season 9, they'd have some footage in Reach, which was like inside of a memory unit. So it wasn't actually happening, it was just like inside a computer simulation. But it was a nice way to implement Halo Reach. And this, you know, obviously had some stuff in Halo 3. They both had stuff in Halo 3. But these two seasons were much more heavily focused on the CGI fight scenes, which is fine. Like I said, I was all for that. These are my two favorite seasons, after all. And the final battle with all of those different Texes, when Sarge comes in and it starts fucking playing Blood Gulch Blues. I'm not gonna lie, I actually legitimately started tearing up when Blood Gulch Blues started playing again, which maybe makes me sound like a little bitch, but I got really attached to this show. So as soon as I heard Blood Gulch Blues come on, I teared up a lot when I saw the ending of Season 10. It was such a good ending. God, fuck, I love Season 10. I need to watch this shit again. Alright, so moving on from those two seasons. Again, I'll get back to why I say it ended with Season 10 in a minute, but we'll talk about some of the stuff afterward, because I still liked a lot of the stuff afterward. I'm not going to pretend I didn't. So here we have Season 11. This was the start of the Chorus trilogy. It was, of course, followed by Season 12 and Season 13 to complete that trilogy. Kind of self-explanatory, since it is a trilogy. But the Chorus trilogy was pretty fun. It was a nice new sort of side arc after they completed the Freelancer saga. They defeated the director of Project Freelancer, and all of that was tied up. Season 11 was a little slow, I'm not going to lie. It was mostly exposition. It was just introducing new stuff and just throwing plot like crazy at you. And it's kind of boring, I'm not going to lie. I still like it, but it is kind of boring. And it was also the first season I bought on Blu-ray, or was given to me on Blu-ray. That's the wrong season, though. That's Season 13. This one was the first one I got on Blu-ray. And I didn't like it very much because the menu was unintuitive and kind of broken. So then I got this one, 12 on DVD. And then I went back to Blu-ray. And it's kind of been back and forth. Because I used to always get Red vs. Blue, either for my birthday or for Christmas. I'd always ask for Red vs. Blue because, like I said, it's one of my all-time favorite shows. But the Chorus trilogy was overall fine. It ends on a cliffhanger in Season 13 that never fully gets resolved. Like, you move on and there's stuff after it, but it never fully 100% gets resolved. And, of course, it ends, again, with Church kind of being written out because he kind of dies again. But then he kind of comes back in Season 16. Sort of. Anyway, but that's the Chorus trilogy. It's fine. I like Locus as a villain. It was an interesting arc. I didn't hate it. It was very entertaining. But overall, it definitely did not feel as impactful to the overarching story as the first 10 seasons did. Okay, now on to the worst season of Red vs. Blue. Season 14. Season 14 was fucking garbage. I hate Season 14. It is absolutely terrible. So what they decided to do was like, we usually have an overarching story, right? Well, this time, why don't we just do a short anthology series of various different short stories, some multiple parts, some singular parts, and some canon, some not, and we'll just slap it all together with multiple collaborators and call it a day. And it's very lazy, and I get it because they were working on RWBY, although I fucking hate RWBY. I've never been a fan of it. I kind of think Rooster Teeth, in a way, is kind of a one-trick pony, because I don't like RWBY. The Strangerhood was okay, at best. And I haven't really gotten into any of their shorts or any of the other stuff, but Red vs. Blue, like I said, one of my favorite shows of all time. And I definitely think this season suffered because of the increasing focus they were putting on RWBY, RWBY. Red, white, yellow, black, or whatever it is. Which basically just feels to me like a poor man's CGI Soul Eater. Now, granted, that's not to say that all of Season 14 is bad. There are, like, one or two arcs I actually genuinely did like. Like all of the backstory with Locus and Felix. I thought that development was really well done. Again, I did think they were good characters in the Chorus trilogy, so more backstory to them was entertaining. There was also some prequel stuff leading up to Blood Gulch, which tied up some loose ends, which didn't make sense previously, so that made me very happy. But most of it was pretty trash. This season, bad. Don't like it. I'll only probably rewatch those few arcs I did like. The worst episode this season, in my opinion, though, was the fucking death battle. Maybe the rocket jump one was worse. Or the Warthog launch, or whatever they called it. That one was pretty bad. And Red vs. Blue vs. Rooster Teeth was kind of stupid. Like, it was just a meta episode. It was fine, but I didn't like it very much. But the death battle, I didn't like it because there were several things they didn't factor in. Because, they had Carolina versus the meta, and they had Carolina win, which ultimately wasn't my only problem with it. But they didn't factor in, like, her armor locking up. They, like, kind of briefly showed it happen, and then it immediately fixed itself, which is not how it's worked at all in the seasons. And the way she defeated the meta, I agreed with. Like, the fact that she outsmarted him, good. And they had Epsilon project himself as the alpha. That would have actually worked on the meta. That made sense. But they just glossed over a lot of things and didn't really play it out properly, so I still didn't like it. But yeah, this season was just bad. Now, Season 15 was the start of yet another trilogy, and I've only seen 2 entries in this trilogy, and we'll get to why in a minute. But Season 15 was actually pretty entertaining, pretty good. It was much of a return to form after this fucking nonsense. So Season 15 rather, sorry, was really good. It felt like Red vs. Blue again. Miles above Season 14. And on par, I'd say, with the Chorus trilogy. Again, probably nowhere near as good as the Freelancer Saga. Definitely nowhere near as good as the Freelancer Saga. That's the best part, like I said. But also not quite as good as, the Recollection or even Blood Gulch, I would say. But still pretty decent. I still enjoyed it quite a bit. Like I said, on par with Chorus. And it brought the Reds and Blues back again after, and kind of hinted at some stuff. Again, it didn't give you any full resolution, but it was fine. It had, like, these fake Reds and Blues. It had this, like, reporter investigating and kind of parodying Hunt the Truth from Halo 5's promotional stuff, which was very misleading with Halo 5 itself. Like, Hunt the Truth made the game seem like it would have had this big epic battle with Locke and Chief, which never happened, but that's a whole other thing. That's Halo, that's not Red vs. Blue. Obviously, I do like both. But, yeah, that season, pretty solid. I liked it. This one was okay. Season 16, or the Shizno Paradox, as it's called, which is also the name of the trilogy, so that gets kind of confusing. The third entry is called Singularity, and I have not bothered with that one. This one's really fucking weird. It has, like, all these Greek gods and stuff that later turn out to, like, be AIs, but they're also able to time travel and, like, control the universe. It doesn't make any fucking sense how an AI could do half the shit they do in this. It's kind of wacky and fun. I do still like it, but it's really fucking weird, and it's not the greatest. But it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. I didn't bother watching Singularity because, number one, after this, I'm like, I don't know, it's just going to get weirder. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's good. But on top of that, in a similar fashion to how I don't support Funimation anymore, I don't support Rooster Teeth anymore either, because they were very anti-Vic Mignogna during that whole thing. And I know, whatever, that's divisive. I get it if you... whatever. Point is, I chose not to support them after that. Or at least I waited, and I didn't want to buy it right off because of that. I thought I might buy it later when things died down, but ultimately I still haven't, because Rooster Teeth just keeps making increasingly bad decisions. So this is one of the issues I have with it. This is the real-world issue of why I think it ended with Season 10, and why I don't really bother with it anymore. Rooster Teeth has just been on a downward spiral for some time now. A large part of it, I do think, is the lead writer for Seasons 9 and 10 was this guy named Monty Oum, and that guy was a fucking phenomenal writer. I loved him. But the problem is, unfortunately, Monty did pass away. So no one else's writing has even come close to his. And I get that. You know, that's no one's fault. You know, no one can be as good as Monty. He was a great writer. But Rooster Teeth has had a lot of infighting, too. Like, they fired Joel Heyman, the actor of Caboose, which that means Caboose is either going to have to be killed off, written out, or recast, none of which I support. And they also had him record a bunch of Red vs. Blue PSAs, which, if you're unfamiliar with, Red vs. Blue has a tradition of doing PSAs in addition to their mainline shows. In fact, those PSAs were some of my earliest exposure to Red vs. Blue, because it's just short little gag fake PSA videos. And those are fun. But they had Joel Heyman record a bunch of them, and they just fucking fired him right after that. I don't know all the details, but from what I understand, it was because he didn't have the same political leaning as they did. I may be wrong on that. That may not be the case. There may be more to it. I'm gonna give them somewhat of a benefit of the doubt on that, even though they don't deserve it because they're Rooster Teeth and they did Vic Mignogna dirty. Like, you should see this fucking guidebook they did where instead of crediting Vic, they literally just put, haha, no. Fuck them. But point is, Joel Heyman's gone, so no more Caboose. Best character in the show. Bernie Burns just stepped down and retired to start a family, which good for him. I don't know where he stands on the whole Vic thing or the Joel Heyman thing. I don't care. Even if he doesn't agree with me, and even if he's kind of one of those shadier types, I still ultimately am happy he's able to move on and start a family. That's good for him regardless. But that also means that he's one of the co-founders, as was Joel Heyman, and one of the lead writers. And he played Church. So Bernie Burns stepping down, no more Church. I mean, granted, they kind of sort of killed Church off, so... But now he really can't come back. Unless Bernie Burns decides to do like a cameo or something. I don't know. But the point is he stepped down from Rooster Teeth and, from what I understand, is moving out of the country. So I think that would be a lot more difficult to do. So I don't really feel like Red vs. Blue is worth watching anymore. I mean, those are those real-world factors on why I don't think I'm going to bother with any of the newer seasons after this. Like, I might still rewatch, like, the Chorus trilogy and season 15 and 16 and parts of season 14. Not all of it, because it's fucking garbage, but, like, they got so lazy, they even reused the Red vs. Blue animated episode, Room Zero, which was already a bonus feature on the Blood Gulch Chronicles, many, many years before that, so it's not new. But, I don't know, I just, those are the real-world influence, but let's talk about the plot, right? So, as I said before, Season 10 ended the Freelancer saga, which started, in a way, with Blood Gulch, because it was kind of, like, sort of established with Freelancers being a thing, and, like, them causing issues and all that. And then got expanded on even more in the Recollection, being Reconstruction, Recreation... What was the third one? Was it, Revelation? I think it was Revelation, yeah. And then, it was expanded on even more in the Freelancer saga with Seasons 9 and 10. And then Season 11, like I said, 11 through 13, Chorus Trilogy was decent enough, but the point is, the Freelancer saga ended with Season 10 because they defeated the director. Project Freelancer was no more. Pretty much all of the Freelancers are dead except for Carolina and Washington. So what's the point? You know what I mean? Like, all of the major plot points have been solved. Anything after that is just epilogue. So that's the in-universe reason why I think it really ended with Season 10. In addition to that, Season 10 is just such a fucking phenomenal season. God, I love Season 10. But yeah, Red vs. Blue, it's one of my all-time favorite shows. I fucking love it. And it's because I love it so much that I'm so critical of some of the newer stuff. And why I'm, a little disappointed in some of the conduct at Rooster Teeth. Because ultimately, if it hadn't affected the product, I may still have supported them. Because, again, I can separate art from artist, but, letting Joel Heyman go was kind of the last straw for me. Like, I was already iffy because of Vic Mignogna. Like, granted, Vic Mignogna wasn't in Red vs. Blue. He was in Ruby. He played Crow. And again, I don't really like Ruby. I think Ruby's kind of overrated, but... And because of that, I already had kind of a bias against Rooster Teeth after that whole situation. But then when they let Joel Heyman go, and that means, no more Caboose, essentially, I'm like, yeah, fuck that. I'm not going to watch Red vs. Blue without Caboose. I mean, they already kind of wrote Church out for, like, a while now. And they kind of have him in reduced roles every now and then. And Church was basically the main character, but now he can't come back unless Bernie Burns does, like, small cameos here and there. But yeah, Red vs. Blue, it's one of my all-time favorite shows. And it's just sad to think of how much it's gone downhill after Season 10. Like, again, the Chorus Trilogy was alright. Season 15 was decent. Season 16 was fucking weird, but I didn't hate it. I didn't really, like, love it, but it was okay. And then Season 14, fucking trash. Absolute garbage. But, point is, I do think that Red vs. Blue really ended with Season 10, because they resolved all of the major plot points, and it was the last time that it was actually, all of the Reds and Blues together in one big final battle against Project Freelancer. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Red vs. Blue. I love the show. And ultimately, I'm disappointed that it's not what it used to be. But it was a hell of a ride. And I'll always appreciate it for that. Anyway, this has been Fugitive Red. Have a good one.